Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Trumbore with your nightly review for Thursday, February 28th. I was watching the departure of Pope Benedict today. It was very moving. So I pulled out something I don't think I've ever listened to, but I've had forever. Abbe Pater. This was the recording of Pope John Paul II with his words. It's actually not bad. I listened to it this afternoon. Well, the Dow Jones did not close at a new all-time high today. Instead, there was some index rebalancing at the close that skewed things. The Dow was up 72 points. It finished down 21 to 14,054, so exactly 110 points below the all-time high. S&P finished down just 1 point, 1514, and NASDAQ down just 2 at 3160. Tokyo was up 2.7% today. Shinzo Abe, the Prime Minister, got his preferred choice to head up the Bank of Japan, which means Mr. Kuroda will be following Abe's stimulus mandates. Easy money. London, Paris, and Frankfurt were all up 0.5 to 0.9%, though I saw the euro was collapsing at the end of the day in relative terms. So tomorrow might be interesting. So something was happening at the end of the day. Gold closed at $15.80, down $15. I should have said this is being taped at about 4:03 Eastern Time. Oil 91.89, and the 10-year Treasury 1.88%. Fourth quarter GDP was revised up from down 0.1 to up 0.1, which was far less than expected. It was supposed to be revised to up 0.5. The Chicago Purchasing Managers Index for February came in much better than expected at 56.8, so that is good. As for the sequester, tomorrow, March 1st, more polling data. A Pew Center Washington Post poll by a 62 to 18% margin. The public sees the impact of the sequester as mostly negative rather than mostly positive. A Washington Post ABC News poll said 67% disapprove of the way Republicans in Congress are handling federal spending. 52% disapprove of Obama's handling of it as well. A meeting at the White House tomorrow, Friday, between President Obama, House Speaker Boehner, Mitch McConnell, Majority Leader Harry Reid, and Nancy Pelosi is all about the March 27 continuing resolution deadline to fund the government through September 30th. With no agreement between the two sides, a partial shutdown of some government functions appears to be a distinct possibility. Not one of the 12 annual appropriations bills for the budget year that began last October has passed Congress, of course. Republicans are planning for a vote next week in the House on a bill to fund the day-to-day operations of the government through September 30th, while keeping in place the $85 billion in cuts of 5% to domestic agencies and 8% to the military. As for the administration's scare tactics, such as a projection as many as 40,000 teachers could lose their jobs, it's nothing but guesswork, as the Washington Post points out. To cite another example, state and local governments that might receive less federal aid can shift money around to blunt the impact on something like Meals on Wheels. Regardless, any changes will be gradual. Just to go back to Ben Bernanke's Senate and House testimony of the past 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday. I just want to reiterate a few things. Bernanke said yesterday that we're quite comfortable that we can exit in a way that is both smooth and in which we provide lots of information to markets in advance so they will know what's coming and be able to anticipate. He also reiterated the Fed would keep short-term interest rates near zero, at least until the unemployment rate drops to 6.5%, as long as inflation remains in check. Further, he offered a reasonable guess that the unemployment rate would not fall to 6% until about 2016. And of course, the jobless rate today is 7.9. In Italy, the first hurdle for a new government to clear is to win confidence votes in both chambers of parliament, but that process might not begin until late in March. With 54 seats in the 315-member Senate, Beppe Grillo's five-star anti-establishment party holds the balance of power between the two main parties. Bersani, who has 113 seats, and Berlusconi, who has 116, and you need 158 in the Senate. And Mario Monti only has 19, so he can't supply the difference. So it's Grillo and his 54. Bersani's own position, remember he's the center-left, heads up the Democrat Party, the center-left, the leading vote-getter just barely, but in the lower house, but in the Senate, and due to the way bonuses are awarded on a regional basis, Berlusconi got more seats. Anyway, Bersani's own position is looking increasingly untenable. Some in his own party, are openly criticizing him for running such a weak campaign. The Democrats lost 3.5 million votes compared with the last elections in 2008, and of course only narrowly defeated Berlusconi. Berlusconi lost an even larger share of the vote. The center-right, Berlusconi, has rejected Bersani's opening gambit, which is to let Grillo be the lower house parliament speaker. Of course, neither Berlusconi or Bersani want a rerun of the elections. So the chaos will continue for some time in Italy, and every now and then the markets will be roiled by it. The Obama administration today announced it would provide the Syrian opposition with an additional $60 million in assistance, though for the first time non-lethal aid like food and medical supplies is going directly to the rebels. Secretary of State John Kerry at a meeting in Rome with opposition leaders said, quote, "We do this because we need to stand on the side of those in this fight who want to see Syria rise again and see democracy and human rights. The stakes are really high and we can't risk letting this country in the heart of the Middle East being destroyed by vicious autocrats or hijacked by the extremists." It's been 2 years. 2 freaking years. Kerry said, "No nation, no people should live in fear of their so-called leaders," adding that President Obama's decision to take further steps now is the result of the brutality of superior armed forces propped up by foreign fighters from Iran and Hezbollah. The leader of the Syrian opposition coalition, Muaz al-Khatib, said, quote, "Bashar Assad, for once in your life behave as a human being. Bashar Assad, you have to make at least one wise decision in your life for the future of your country." Washington says it has provided $385 million in humanitarian aid, but none directly to the rebels, until now. But that's a lie, a flat-out lie. As the UN has basically said when they've tallied up the lack of aid that's been flowing to Syria. So again, no way has our government distributed $385 million in humanitarian assistance before this announcement of another $60 million in non-lethal aid to the Syrian rebels. Editorial, Washington Post. U.S. policy towards Syria must also aim at helping the rebels establish a full-fledged alternative government on Syrian territory and recognizing it as the legal government of Syria. That would legitimize the supply of arms and allow the U.S. military to protect the Syrian population with airstrikes or Patriot anti-missile batteries if that were necessary to stop the regime's unconscionable targeting of civilian neighborhoods with missiles and artillery. It could also help to marginalize the growing al-Qaeda presence in rebel forces. But in public, Mr. Kerry has spoken only of increased aid to the opposition Syrian National Coalition, which also has yet to receive direct U.S. aid. The Post has reported that new supplies of weapons are reaching rebels in southern Syria, probably with financing from Saudi Arabia and coordination by the United States. This is the extension of an operation that has been underway for some time, but it is too small to quickly decide the war. The Post continues, Mr. Kerry still speaks of seeking a political solution, though the hope of brokering a deal between the regime and the rebels proved illusory long ago. He says that he aims to change the calculation on the ground for President Assad as if it were still conceivable that this blood-drenched butcher could be induced to quietly step down, and Mr. Kerry is still seeking the cooperation of Russia in ending the war, though Vladimir Putin has made it clear that his first purpose in Syria is preventing a U.S.-engineered regime change. Such tactics are doomed to failure. They will serve only to prolong and intensify the bloodshed to the ultimate benefit of al-Qaeda and those such as Iran's leaders who would prefer endless civil war to any change of government. If the Obama administration is to lead on Syria, it must commit itself to steps that can bring about the early collapse of the regime and its replacement by a representative and responsible alternative. Only direct political and military intervention on the side of the opposition can make that happen. Turning to Iran, as details of this week's talks in Kazakhstan emerge, a new proposal presented to Iran would alleviate some of the sanctions, including the gold trade, in return for Iran suspending operations at its underground nuclear plant at Fordo, though not permanently close it. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said that sanctions should be tightened, not relaxed, and backed up by the threat of a military strike. Netanyahu said, like North Korea, it continues to defy all the international standards, and I believe that this requires the international community to ratchet up its sanctions and make clear that if this continues, there will be also a credible military sanction. A senior Senate Republican aide said the news is startling to many in Washington and certainly in Jerusalem, where decisions of war and peace are nearing final calculation. The gold sanctions relief being offered would blow a hole straight through our final sanctions, and meanwhile Iran would keep its capacity to enrich uranium at 20% or higher. Meanwhile, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah gave a speech last night denying rumors that he has fallen ill. He said, "The rumors spread in the previous days made me hold an urgent media appearance to show you that I am in good health." There is a media campaign against Hezbollah. A Lebanese paper reported that Nasrallah also denied rumors that his deputy, Naim Qasim, was killed in an attack Syrian rebels made on Qasim's it was killed in an attack. Syrian rebels made the claim that Qasim was killed through Twitter early Wednesday. According to another report, he also warned Nasrallah Sunnis not to push us too far. If new rumors go around, you'll see me again, Nasrallah concluded on his Hezbollah's media channel. And this was through a video. But there are reports he's actually in Qom in Iran for cancer treatment. And that over the weekend he had been transferred to Iran on an Iranian presidential plane from Beirut International Airport. And if that's true, that would be fascinating how they got him there without him being assassinated. Well, in conclusion, a very frail-looking Pope Benedict XVI was flown by helicopter to the papal retreat at Castle Gandolfo. I must say, from the footage, Castle Gandolfo is absolutely beautiful. I don't know if we've ever been given the opportunity to see it from above. Makes me want to go there. Benedict then appeared at a window overlooking the public square to bless a cheering crowd. "Thank you very much for your friendship," he said. As of 2000, 8 o'clock, 3 o'clock our time, so just a little over an hour ago, "I'll no longer be a pontiff. I will simply be a pilgrim who is starting the last phase of his pilgrimage on this earth. Let's go forward with God for the good of the church and the world." And in his final tweet, Benedict wrote, "Thank you for your love and support. May you always experience the joy that comes from putting Christ at the center of your lives." It's a very strange feeling for some of us. I'm Catholic, and knowing we won't see him again, it's bizarre, it's touching, it's all kinds of stuff. My church is very troubled, and I'm increasingly troubled by his resignation. I wasn't initially. I supported it. Now I'm not so sure. Well, that's all for tonight. I'll be back with you on Monday. Check out my week in review, which I post early Saturday morning at stocksnews.com. Remember the men and women of our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. Take care.